The air smelled of ash and iron. My ears rang with the sound of clashing blades and guttural roars as I stumbled through the jagged gate that had ripped me out of my world. The demon realm was not fire and brimstone. It was worse. The ground itself breathed heat, pulsing like a forge, and in the shifting smoke, I saw them, eyes glinting, fangs catching the light of molten rivers that flowed like veins through black stone. I didn't wait for introductions. One of them lunged, claws flashing, and I drove the stolen dagger upward. I felt the sickening catch of flesh, the weight of his collapse. Another came from behind, rough hands seizing my arms. I twisted, kicked, tasted blood as I bit through his gauntlet. The din was endless, boots on volcanic gravel, wings unfurling with leathery snaps, a chorus of snarls closing in. But I kept moving, desperate, until my wrist was caught in an iron grip strong enough to snap bone. Dragged forward, I saw it. A relic sword chained to a basalt pillar, its blade dull with centuries of soot. But it was the tag that froze me. Not the script, not the iron, but the crest, my crest. The same spiral flame my grandmother had carved into her locket, the mark of our line. My chest hollowed. What in this realm could it possibly mean? I didn't have time to ask. A guard slammed the flat of a spear into my back, forcing me to my knees. Above the throng, a voice like velvet over embers called for silence. I lifted my head, and there she was, the Ash Queen, black crown smoldering, her gown whispering like smoke against the basalt steps. Her gaze didn't just find me, it pierced. "Alive," she murmured, almost amused. "Immortal, breathing. My coronation grows interesting." The crowd hissed. Demons wanted blood, not spectacle. I wanted nothing more than to run, but the queen's eyes held me, and I understood my danger was deeper than blades. They spoke of a coronation in 3 nights. 3 nights until the whole realm would gather to see me displayed like a curiosity. 3 nights until her throne would blaze with absolute power. My only goal was clear: survive until then, find a way back through whatever rift had dragged me here. But my wrists were shackled, my breath sharp with smoke, my body trembling as the queen's hand brushed the air in a gesture that silenced the horde. I had no illusions. Mortals weren't guests here. We were prey. Yet for reasons I couldn't fathom, I was alive, and she, the Ash Queen, looked at me not as query, but as something claimed. For the first time in my life, I felt my own heartbeat as a countdown. The palace was carved from obsidian cliffs, veins of fire crawling across its walls like living scars. At night the halls glowed, shadows trembling in every corner. I slept, or pretended to, on silken cushions that smelled faintly of sulfur and crushed herbs. Always watched, always guarded. The queen summoned me daily, testing me with words instead of blades. She asked of my world, my family, my fire. I offered nothing but fragments, yet somehow she seemed amused by my defiance, not angered. That unsettled me most. By the second night, the rehearsals for her coronation grew louder, longer, drums like thunder, horns that cracked the air, dancers swirling with chains that rattled in rhythm. When they pulled me into their ritual, shackles biting my wrists, I thought it was the end. But the queen rose from her throne, took the other end of my chain, and stepped beside me. The hall fell into stunned silence. Together we moved in circles, the chain between us glinting in firelight. I refused to bow, refused to falter. My bare feet burned on volcanic stone. Sweat streaked my back, but I held her gaze. The court gasped when I laughed. Not mockery, but survival. A laugh in the face of spectacle. And then behind the pounding drums, I heard it. A whisper from one demon to another. The prophecy. The mortal flame bride who topples crowns. My breath hitched, nearly costing me a step. Bride? Topple crowns? My body betrayed me, shivering even as I forced the dance onward. The queen squeezed the chain, guiding me through the final movement. When the drums ended, the hall erupted in hisses and murmurs, but she only smiled faintly, as if they had all confirmed her private thought. I was no prisoner. I was something else, and I didn't know which fate was worse. Later, alone in a darkened chamber, I paced. My wrists were raw, my pulse still ragged. I could not deny the truth. 3 nights was becoming 2. The time slipped like molten glass, unstoppable. If I couldn't escape before the coronation, whatever vow they forced upon me would be permanent. My world, my name, lost to ash. Yet my mind replayed the chain between us, the way her eyes softened at the corners when I refused to break. Dangerous as it was, I wondered if survival meant more than running. I hated myself for wondering. The eve of coronation. The palace was restless, horns echoing through caverns, wings beating in dark skies. I tried to slip away during the chaos, but the queen was always ahead of me. She locked me in the labyrinth beneath her halls, stone corridors winding like veins, torches sputtering with blue flame. She said it was protection. I knew it was a cage. Hours blurred. I scraped my palms on jagged walls, felt the chill of moss where fire couldn't reach. My footsteps echoed, heartbeat racing to match. And then I found it. The mural, ancient, worn, half restored. A mortal, head bowed, chains coiled around limbs. My chest seized. This was my fate. The prophecy wasn't of triumph, it was of bondage. My stomach turned to ice. "No," I whispered, fury rising like bile. I struck the mural with my fists, again, until the stone cracked. The wall trembled, then collapsed, a passage opening, but also burying me in dust and rock. My lungs burned as I clawed for air. Stones pinned my leg. I tasted blood, felt the weight crushing in. Panic surged. This was how I would end, forgotten beneath obsidian. Hands seized me, strong, trembling hands. She hauled me from the rubble, her own gown torn, ash streaking her face. The queen, the untouchable, was bleeding. She pressed her forehead to mine, her breath ragged. "Fool," she whispered, voice shaking. "I would not let you die." For the first time, I saw her without crown or mask. Not untouchable, vulnerable. Afraid, not of losing her throne, but of losing me. The torches sputtered low. My leg throbbed. Above, the drums rolled ceaselessly. Coronation was hours away, and I was no closer to freedom. Worse, I was tethered now, not by chains, but by the shattering truth that she cared, and I cared enough to feel the fracture tearing me in two. The coronation hall burned with crimson light, fire streaming through carved arches. Demons filled the vast space, wings folded tight, eyes gleaming like coals. Midnight loomed, the third bell already tolled. One more, and her reign would seal. They brought me forward, unshackled for the first time. My wrists felt naked, my heart louder than the drums. The mural haunted me, the image of chains that had convinced me of doom. Yet as I stepped onto the dais, I saw it anew, fully revealed after restoration. Not chains at all, roots of fire, entwined around the mortal figure. Not a prisoner, but a partner. Flames growing together, not bound. The prophecy was never about captivity. It was about choice, about shared power. The queen stood in her crown of ash, expression unreadable. I could have turned then, fled, leapt into shadow, vanished before the final bell. But her eyes found mine, and I understood the cost. If I took her hand, I lost my world, my name, my freedom as I knew it. If she accepted me, she risked rebellion, assassination, her throne itself. Love here was not safe. It was fire. The hall hushed. The final bell began to toll. I lifted my chin, stepped forward, and placed my hand in hers. Gasps rippled like a storm wind through the court. The queen's fingers closed around mine, steady, fierce. Together, we faced them. "I am no prey," I said, voice carrying into silence. "No chained bride. I am flame, and I burn with her." The last bell struck. The vow was sealed, not in blood, but in choice. A mortal bride standing unchained, a queen risking everything to claim me. The hall roared, half in fury, half in awe. Rebellion was no longer rumor. It was born in fire, in love. I looked at her, and she smiled, not as conqueror, not as captor, but as equal. Around us, the world trembled. Yet in that moment, in the blaze of crimson and gold, there was only her hand in mine, and the silent vow that whatever came, we would face it together.